Happy Monday. Welcome to The Wise Guys, the largest BYU sports live stream show in the whole world, presented by Brady Plus. And tonight we welcome Mountain America Credit Union and Eddie to our global family. Wise Guys is distributed by the Deseret News. Look for our new podcast tomorrow wherever you get your podcasts. The stream is already hopping. We'll get right to it. But this is a big day.
Yes, it is. We've been working on this for quite some time. You put a lot of work in. Jack's put a lot of work in. But we're so grateful, along with Travis Brady and Brady Plus, to have Mountain America Credit Union and Eddie as sponsors. How awesome is this?
It's so good. It's the first Monday of June, and that means that football returns next month. BYU's first practice, the season premiere of After Further Review on BYU TV, and the NFL's first preseason game. That's what we get to say on the first Monday of June.
That's right. Hey, and I always remind you every week, I'm going to remind you again, please subscribe to our free email at wiseguys.com. When you do, you can go watch all of our past content. When you go to that site, you'll get an update on email when we go live. And for things to watch for. We'd also like if you'd hit the free subscribe button on your YouTube channel. That helps as well. So everything we're asking you to do is free. So do the free stuff and help us continue to grow this thing. And we appreciate all that you've done as a global family around the world. And we've got people, hey, they're dropping in from Harriman already. Where else have we got them from?
There's St. George. There's Pleasant Hill, California.
Provo's in the house. Jim Robinson from Provo.
In here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy night. We got lots to talk about, so welcome everybody to the stream. Let's talk for a moment about the people who are going to make this show possible for a long time, and we hope you thank them in your own special way, and certainly if you ever get a chance to support them, we encourage you to do that. Brady Plus provides cleaning, food service, and packaging equipment, dispensers, and service and repairs with over 150 distribution facilities across the country, over 6,000 employees. Travis Brady, a BYU grad, he's the president. He's going to join us in a couple of weeks here on Wise Guys. We love Brady Plus.
Yeah, and also MACU, Mountain America Credit Union, helping people achieve their financial dreams for over 80 years. So whether you're buying a home, planning for retirement, managing your daily expenses, Mountain America is there with the tools, the technology, and guidance to help you succeed. Visit macu.com to learn more. We're so glad to have MACU on board as a sponsor.
Also, we welcome Eddie, HR and payroll software built for small businesses. Whether you run a dental office in Spanish Fork, Utah, or a construction crew in Lehigh, Eddie helps you hire, onboard, track time, and run payroll all in one place. Simple, local, reliable. Built by business owners who believe people come first. See how Eddie can serve your team at eddie.com. We just came from an event in Orem, and we were talking to the owner there, and he says, oh, yeah, I do my payroll through Eddie.
Yeah.
Like, well, what a small world. Eddie is now part of us.
That's right. We're so glad to have them on board. And let's not forget about the Deseret News. Wise Guys is distributed by the Deseret News and Deseret.com. That's Utah's newspaper since 1850. A great distribution partner from the beginning with the Deseret News.
Boyd from Leander, Texas is on the stream. There's Trent from Orem, Utah. Robert from Star, Idaho.
Is that Star Valley, Idaho?
Or is it just Star?
Star Valley's Wyoming. Is there a place called Star, Idaho?
Must be.
Okay, this place I haven't been in Idaho.
Cedar Hills, Utah is with us. Ojai, California.
Dave, he's from Ojai, California, but visiting Spring, Texas this week.
Wow, so that's a twofer, representing two. Saratoga Springs.
I like how Trent B signs in and says, hey, I'm a MACU member since 1992.
Nice job.
Way to go, Trent.
That makes you a special supporter.
That's right.
Of the Wise Guys. Here's what we got going tonight. BYU football broadcasts. The details are out for 4 of the first 12 games. That's part of the exciting countdown on this first Monday in June.
Yeah, Chris Crowe, a member of LaVell Edwards' first team at BYU, and he's going to talk to us about the surprise he received on his recruiting visit.
Oh, yeah. And it'll make you scratch your head.
Yeah.
And he's going to retire from the English department as a professor on December 31st.
That's right.
So he's on the Wise Guys with us tonight. BYU basketball schedule continues to unfold. It's huge. We just talked to Kevin Young coming from that event, and man, there is a buzz about basketball. Even when you're in a hot parking lot with the sun beating down, talking to the coach, you can't help but go, how long have we got to wait?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was talking to Brody Kozlowski, And who else? We saw AJ was over there.
Richie
Saunders we talked to for a little bit. I talked with Brody and the gang and with Dawson Baker a little bit about the schedule. So when we get into the schedule, I'll tell you what their thoughts were on the schedule.
Fantastic.
So, hey, Scott Kavanaugh, the venue manager for LaVell Edwards Stadium in the Marriott Center, will join us. Before he came back to Provo, and you and I knew him before he was in Provo because we were doing stuff down at UNLV, he helped run the biggest venues in Las Vegas. And when you run the Thomas and Mack and you run, well, it used to be called the Silver Bowl, all out in the desert out there. But when you run, what's it called now?
Sam Boyd Stadium.
Sam Boyd Stadium out there. You're talking about some of the biggest acts in the world come into those venues. And we know that Scott has some great stories. And he runs the Marriott Center.
Like who was the craziest to deal with?
Yeah, we'll ask him some
tough hitting questions like that.
But Scott takes great care of us as we work in both of the big venues he's responsible for here, the Marriott Center and LaVell Edwards Stadium. And he's a good friend. We have him on the show tonight.
Robert says, yes, Star is just outside of Boise toward the border with Oregon.
Okay, so up toward Baker, I guess, is where he's talking about.
Randall's in West Valley. He's here with us tonight. Nick Smith from Pensacola, Florida. Good to have you on board with us. We want to congratulate Tim Felicia. He's the Wise Guys for a Day. Remember, we had this contest the last few weeks, and the contest was log on to Wise Guys at X or YouTube and explain, hey, you'd like to come on, and here's your BYU story. And then Chantal from strategysquare.co went through everything, and the winner was selected, and it is Tim. And so, Tim, we'll be getting with you here shortly and lock you in for a date on the Wise Guys where you will be a guest. And we'll talk about your story and so much more. Your life will never be the same after that.
That's right.
And then we're going to do this more and more often because our streamers are our show, and we want to start putting you guys on the Wise Guys as often as we can. So, Tim, congratulations, and everybody, we'll see you soon.
That's right. That's fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, should we talk a little bit about BYU football?
Let's do it.
Okay. BYU football kickoff times and TV details, as you mentioned, for 4 of BYU's 12 games have now been announced. Starting with that Portland State game, the opener at BYU on August 30th. Game days on BYU TV. That'll be at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. You and I will host that show. The game will be on ESPN Plus at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. The question is, will you and I get a chance to do that or not?
I don't know, but there's a better chance we're going to have Jets because it's still going to be sun's going to be out.
That's exactly.
So if we had to pick, you know, for the fans, they maybe we'll get some Jets that
in
night.
Basketball, there's always a chance when it's an ESPN Plus game that Dave and I get a chance to call the game.
We're going to do a few of those.
In football, it's been a little bit different. So the post game will then be on BYU TV right after the game. So that's Portland State, August 30th.
That's going to be an awesome, hot summer night.
Yes, it will.
And there'll be the big dance party afterwards on the street there. And we'll be there throwing footballs around. Sylvia's in from Wisconsin, and Mike is in from Huntsville, Alabama on the live stream. Welcome, guys. That's going to be a good one. Stanford at BYU the next week, September 6th. Game day on BYU TV. That's at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Then the football game's at 8:15 p.m. Yeah, that's a late one, but that's how we roll here in the West.
And that early in the year, I don't mind that because it's a little cooler.
Yeah, and that's on ESPN, the mothership, at the end of a very busy college football Saturday. It's going to be awesome. And then the post-game show on BYU TV. We're going to go deep into the night. I have a feeling on that one.
And then on September 27th, we're skipping a few weeks forward, but that's the next one that's been announced. BYU's at Colorado, the big rematch from the Alamo Bowl. Colorado, of course, without Shedeur Sanders, and it'll be interesting to see how they go without their starting quarterback, and also Travis Hunter, the best player in college football last year, also moved on to the NFL. Game days on BYU TV at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. The game is on ESPN, the mothership, 8:15 Mountain Time, and the post game on BYU TV right afterward.
This was interesting because they were just going to announce the first 3 weeks. Right, and BYU's third week is a bye.
Right.
But ESPN wanted everyone to know that the Cougs and Buffaloes are going to be prime time.
That's right.
On September 27th. And the other game that has been announced, West Virginia at BYU. That's a Friday night, October 3rd. Game day on BYU TV at 6:30 Mountain Time. It's another late one, 8:30 Eastern. or 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern. Sorry, folks. But it's General Conference weekend, so there's that. And then the post game on BYU TV after that one. So I was talking with our friend Doug Paisley, because I went up and saw him in Idaho, and said, hey, how do we get you and Brad, his son, Brad Paisley, to come down to the game? Yeah. He's friends with Spencer Cox, and he said, well, it'd be helpful if Governor Cox would invite Brad, and then Brad would invite me, and then the two of them can come down.
Let's talk to Spencer about this.
What about playing the national anthem? He said, probably not. I said, okay. These are big West Virginia fans, the Paisleys, but they're the first class human beings, and we'd love to have them. We met them, met Doug at the West Virginia game in Washington, D.C. back in 2016. And so in 2025, we're going to finally get them here. So anyway, that's a big night, West Virginia at BYU, Friday night on ESPN. By the way, BYU's 28-4 in their last 32 night games. 28-4.
Yeah.
And 15-3 at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
Hey,
so that's good. We play at night.
Cougars after dark is a scary thing for visiting opponents.
It has been. Absolutely, it has.
And I think the team has this psyche that they just think if they're playing at night, they're going to win. And the fans feel the same way. It's got a kind of a real vibe to it, night games at BYU. So
Kyle on the stream checking in from Omaha, Nebraska tonight. And Linda says, hello, friends from Saratoga Springs, Utah. Good to have all of you with us. All right, let's go to some notable. When this came out, and there's times, it just feels so much closer. So we thought, hey, you know what? For games that matter, here's some early games.
We're going to give you these ones all Mountain Time, so we don't have to tell you Mountain or whatever. So all these are Mountain Time. So Stanford's at Hawaii. That's August 23rd. So an early game in Hawaii. That's 5:30 p.m. That's on CBS. And you want to watch that because you want to scout Stanford out and see who BYU has to play on September 6th. Now, keep in mind, Bear Bachmeier had kind of earned the starting job there through spring ball. They changed the coach. They fired the coach, and Bear transferred to BYU. So who's going to play quarterback at Stanford against Hawaii?
I don't know, but we'll be watching. Cincinnati has got a home game against Nebraska Thursday night, August 28th, 7 p.m. on ESPN. So that one we'll be watching because the Cougars are going to play the Bearcats later on.
That's right. Auburn's at Baylor. Baylor, Big 12 foe that BYU will see. This is Friday, August 29th. 6 p.m. on Fox.
Friday night. I love that when they play on weeknights. Ohio State at Texas, Saturday, August 30th, or September 6th, 10 a.m. on Fox. That starts a very big day. It starts a long day for us as we end that one at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
That's right. That's the Portland game. LSU's at Clemson. That's Saturday, August 30th, 5:30 p.m. on ABC. So another big game that same August 30th.
Utah at UCLA on August 30th, 9 o'clock on Fox. That's a late one, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. But I'm curious to see what UCLA's got. And you know what? No one really knows what the Utes have after last season.
Yeah, that's true.
So
and they got a new quarterback. You would think that they're not going to bring the transfer in from New Mexico if he's not going to be the guy, but will Wilson have something to say? I mean, I'm really anxious to see who plays quarterback there. In that first game against UCLA. So Notre Dame's at Miami Sunday, August 31st. That's 5:30 on ABC.
Hey, those games are going to be right on us here, super fast. So ESPN and Fox have put out some start times, which we love, and we'll talk about them throughout the summer. How about this? Since we were together last, BYU added another 4-star offensive lineman. This was a flip from Oregon, who had flipped from BYU, who then flipped back to BYU, and he's all in. I'm going to go with Alai. I'm going to give you the next one.
Alai Kalaniuvalu.
All right, let's go with that.
Kalaniuvalu.
He flipped his commitment to BYU. Orem product. He played at Bishop Gorman in Vegas. Sonny Makasina is his brother-in-law. He's on the offensive line already. And this new kid, what did we say, Alai?
I'm thinking it's just Alai.
Alai. He's part of that 2025 recruiting class left on his church mission in January. Originally, as mentioned, committed to BYU. Then he flipped to Oregon. And now he's flipped back and he's in.
And you think about this recruiting class, this 2025 recruiting class, is already rated the highest recruiting class in BYU history. And they just keep adding stars to this class. So things are happening. You know, we hear about basketball. There's fewer of them. And there's huge stars coming in, both from the transfer portal and in the recruiting class for Kevin Young. But this football team's kind of quietly just assembling a very, very talented recruiting class this next year.
And then the year after, it just keeps getting better.
Yep.
We send our congratulations to 4-star BYU signee McKay Madsen. Over the weekend, he successfully defended his California state championships in the shot put and discus. This kid's a special athlete. He leaves on his church mission to Argentina in July. I believe my nephew is already in line to be his trainer when he gets down there. Yep. So that's good. He'll be in Provo in 2027. And our interview with McKay Madsen, you can watch at wiseguys.com. It was awesome. These kids that come, and they are a cut above, and he's going to be a perfect fit at BYU.
Yeah, he's going to be great. He says he's going to come play running back.
Yeah.
But if he said that if BYU felt once he got here that there was a greater need and he can contribute more at linebacker, he would be glad to switch to linebacker. And then very mature thought process. So, but I think they'll let him play wherever he wants to play.
He runs like Luke Staley.
Yeah, he really does. So, hey, a little information on Mike Leach, our good friend and a former BYU guy and legendary coach. Congratulations. I'm going to say congratulations to him because this is going to open up the door for Mike Leach. The College Football Hall of Fame has agreed to lower the required win percentage for coaches from 60% to 59.5%.
Now, why would they do that?
Because that'll allow Mike Leach to become eligible for the induction because he's 59.5%.
And that's an awesome reason.
Yeah. He coached at Mississippi State, Texas Tech, and Washington State. Learned his offensive prowess here at BYU as a student with LaVell Edwards in that staff. LaVell was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame back in 2004. It'd be so nice to see Mike Leach, because Mike Leach kind of took that passing game, that West Coast game, and expanded it, and he coined the phrase air raid, and teams are still running the concepts that he brought to college football. And so he really belongs in that College Football Hall of Fame because he had a major impact on the way teams play offense today and the way quarterbacks read. So that's why I say congrats to Mike Leach. The fact that they're changing the requirement and shaving it down 0.5% so he can be in is a big deal.
The Pirate should be in.
Yes.
And that's good. ESPN's S&P Plus rankings, Kansas State, number 18, they got them at 9 wins. They've got Arizona State 22nd at 8.4, Texas Tech 26th at 8.4, a little percentage point down. BYU they have at 27 with an 8.4 win projection, and Utah's at 31 with 7.9. I like 8.4.
I'll take it.
Especially considering some of the things that are going on.
Yeah, and last year they said 4.5.
Yeah. Or even less than that, right?
Yeah, so if we overachieve
like
to the same level that they overachieved last year, they're pretty much undefeated.
Now, DraftKings, they're over under regular season win totals for football. Here are their top teams in the Big 12. They got ASU, Kansas State, and Texas Tech all at 8.5. Mm-hmm. They got BYU at 7.5. And the Cougars don't play Arizona State and Kansas State, but they do play Texas Tech.
This is why it's interesting to me. I look at what BYU had coming back last year and what people said they would do and who they played. They had one of the toughest schedules in the conference last year. Then I look at who they have coming back this year, and they play a much easier schedule based on what people have coming back, and yet somebody still has them at 7.5 wins. If BYU doesn't win 8+ this year, I'm going to be disappointed and surprised.
Yeah. Give me 4 teams they're going to lose to.
Yeah.
And that gets a little hard.
Yeah.
There might be, that this game at Iowa State, that's going to be a hard one. Sure it is. Well, find me 3 other ones.
Yeah.
That you don't think they can win.
That's right.
The 2026 football recruiting rankings, ESPN put that list out since we were last together. USC's had a good year.
Yeah, number 1 overall.
Yeah.
How about Kansas? That you don't usually see Kansas in the top 10. They're number 7.
They're on the rise, right?
Yeah, that's big time. And then Arizona State's at number 9. But Dave, where's BYU?
Number 20. Number 20.
BYU's never had a top 20 recruiting class, ever.
Never.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and, they still think they're going to add a quarterback who might push it up a little more.
Yeah.
This is the 2026 class.
And they're still looking for some there's still some guys out there that they're still on.
Yeah.
So
this June is a huge week for visits.
Yep.
And so those are all going on. Here's some other key dates. Next month, Big 12 Media Days, July 8th and 9th in Frisco, Texas. That's when we'll get our first Big 12 preseason poll. BYU will be there on the 8th. They're in the first day. The Utes, I think, are the second day. Our After Further Review season premiere is July 29th on BYU TV. Now, the Cougars reporting to camp. We believe it's the 30th, right?
Around July 30th. I should have asked Gavin. He came in from football camp right when I was walking out.
And and the reason we think that's that way because they're playing on August 30th.
Right.
So you got to give yourself 4 weeks.
So right now, what they're engaged in is football camps for the next 3 weeks. So the high school kids are in the beginning of this week. They have Cougar Cubs at the end of the week. They have an elite camp, I think, next week, and then Cougar. So they have camps all week long for the next several weeks. And all the BYU staff will be working, along with a lot of the players working these football camps. And the players are still doing workouts and doing all that early in the morning. And then BYU's hosting a bunch of football camps over the next 3 weeks. And this is where they get their eyes on some of the top future recruits that are going to come to BYU.
And a fast food alert. Stay away from the fast food locations around campus.
Really busy.
There's going to be long lines for the next 3 weeks. The Lions and Chargers kick off the NFL preseason next month, the Hall of Fame game on July 31st. And then, man, right around the corner, how about one of the biggest Big 12 games of the season, the very first game of the season on August 23rd?
Yeah, and it's Iowa State, who's predicted to be at the top of the league, against Kansas State.
And where are they playing that?
In Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about
that?
That
is a meaningful game to put over there.
Two projected contenders playing in Dublin to start the season. So
yeah, that's a head scratcher, but it'll be fun for the fans. Yeah. So that's the football report. Let's get into basketball just ahead of our first guest tonight. So that schedule's come together, and there's some really big games. Villanova, November 3rd, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
And then, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And then BYU versus Clemson, that's November 9th. That's in Madison Square Garden.
How about November 15th, BYU? Let's see, the Madison Square Garden, that's December 9th. That's my bad.
Oh, yeah.
BYU against UConn on November 15th. That's at the TD Center. That's where the Celtics play.
Right. The new garden.
Yeah.
It's not the Boston Garden, but it's the TD Center.
Kind of a home game for AJ.
Yeah. And then BYU Wisconsin is November 21st. That's in the Delta Center. There's a return game to Milwaukee next year. So they're kind of neutral site, but close to one or the other team.
Yeah, neither team. Their games are big. They're not going near each team's arena.
Right. So, and then BYU versus Miami, Dayton, or Georgetown in the Orlando Disney World Classic. That's November 27th through the 28th.
So they're going to Disney World for
so they're
Thanksgiving.
going to play two of those teams. Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Gary Parrish of CBS Sports has updated his preseason top 25. 1 is St. John's, 2 is Houston.
3 is BYU.
3 is BYU. So that's never happened, like ever.
Yeah, they're underrating the football team, and they're certainly not underrating the basketball team.
This is preseason stuff. Now, remember, BYU basketball got up to number 2 with Mike Smith. Right. Then they got beat at UAB. They would have been number 1 if they could have beaten
because
UAB.
I can't remember who lost that. It might have been Kentucky or somebody like that lost that day.
And then we've been out ever since. Well, we've never been 3 at the start. And so Gary Parrish is like, put the Cougs at 3.
A College Basketball Report post NBA draft deadline preseason rankings. Houston 1, Purdue 2, Florida 3, Duke 4. Those are all the normal characters, although Purdue's higher than usual.
And all those guys got guys back, right, who left the draft.
And then BYU's 5.
Wow.
In that one.
Yeah, 5's good. Seems like 5's pretty good.
Yeah, it's wild.
What do you guys think on the stream tonight? 5 and 3? That seems pretty good. NBA insider Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports. I asked him this question on Sports Nation last week. If he thinks BYU could have 3 NBA draft picks in their starting 5 this year, and he said, "Yeah, I do."
That's crazy.
Now that has never happened. So that's why Kevin Young, as we talked to him a little while ago before we came on the show tonight, he's smiling all the time.
Yeah.
Now there's some pressure there, but he's got some guys.
Yeah, you think AJ DeBonsa, if he lives up to his potential, could be the number 1 pick in the draft next year. And then Richie Saunders, working on some things in his game, very well could be a first-round draft pick as well. And then Rob Wright, the transfer point guard from Baylor, he's a youngin', and so he may be another year away. But he's also projected to be an NBA point guard and be a draft pick. So, yeah, how about that?
Speaking of draft picks, the draft is coming up June 25th and 26th. First round is that 25th. Yegor projected lottery picks. Some have him at 10 and 9. Some have him at 19. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that whatever he was, let's say he was 19, 18, 17, his workout where he was running the three-point drill, because the big question was, he changed his shot a little bit, got a little higher release when he came to BYU. Kevin Young and those guys worked on it. He didn't shoot a great percentage from distance, and everybody thought, can he do this? He was the best three-point shooter in the combine. Like, he knocked 16 straight threes down at one point. So I think he moves up from there. I think he's, maybe 12.
Yeah, so, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
That would be great. Jeff on the stream tonight says, hey, here's a good plan. Go watch the Eagles at the Sphere in Vegas on Saturday, November 1st.
Okay.
And then go to church in Vegas on Sunday, and there's plenty of them. There's like 40 steaks down there, so you can get to one. And then watch BYU basketball on Monday, November 3rd. Sounds like a great trip to make. That does sound like a great trip.
You have Saturday night party at the Sphere. You got a Sunday where you can spend with some good fellow Saints
Some
down
good fellows.
Right? And then on Monday for family night, you go to the BYU game.
Yeah.
I like it.
Watch them play Villanova.
Sounds like a great trip to me too, Jeff.
Fantastic.
Or
Jeff
that's Jet, actually.
Is it Jet? Jet would love to join you there. We're going to have an after further review on that Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, that's our problem.
But dang, you're right. That's a good one.
So,
hey, former Cougar Austin Ainge, we shout out congratulations. He's the new president of basketball operations for the Utah Jazz. Reunites with his dad, Danny. I'm not sure if he can fire him or not, but we'll see how that goes.
I think only his mom can fire him.
Danny's the CEO. And
Michelle's the only one that can fire him.
Austin's the president of basketball ops. 2 Ainges are better than one. That's what the Jazz are banking on. And Austin spent the last 14 years in the Celtics front office, and they've won a lot of games over the last 14 years. And I think the Jazz are like, hey, come help us put this thing together. As for Danny, you can see our Wise Guys interview with him at wiseguys.com. But it'd be good to have Austin back.
And we're going to see a lot of activity from the Jazz here. Leading up.
It feels like we should.
Yeah, it feels like there should be some trades made and some things done to try to get some talent. So, yeah, and a good time to bring Austin in because, he's been there with the Celtics and they've been good, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
and they've made some good deals over time.
Good for him, and now they can have meetings over dinner.
That's right.
Like, hey, you know what? What do you think we should do at the forward spot? Yeah. Our first guest tonight is an award-winning professor in the BYU English department who will retire on the 31st at the end of the year after 49 years in education. In addition to teacher, he's an author, a presenter, a public speaker, former high school football coach, and he was an offensive lineman on LaVell Edwards' first teams at BYU. It is a pleasure to welcome Chris Crowe to the Wise Guys. Good evening.
Good to be here. Thank you.
It's great having you here. Let's jump right to the big question. You lined up at 6'3", 230. Your peak weight at 239. So tell me the difference between today's offensive lineman, like 6'8" and 315-pound Andrew Gentry, who'll be sitting in that seat next week.
You'll need 2 seats for him.
Compare that with the lineman of back in your day.
So I remember my freshman year at BYU, one of the big things that Coach Edwards did was started powerlifting because the thinking before that was you get muscle bound and you can't be athletic. And Greg Shepard started that up and the bigger, stronger, faster stuff. But in those days, a guy at 250 was about as big as they could be and still be mobile. Some were around 260, but that was about it. Guys bigger than that were just big lumps of fat.
Yeah.
They just couldn't move. So I was still undersized at 230. It's hard for me to gain weight and keep it up. And I was a member of the team. I backed up Brad Oates my last 2 years.
Oh, man.
So
Legend Brad Oates, right? One of the best.
Hey, Blaine backed up a few legends too. You guys got a lot in common.
Steve Young, Jim McMahon, just to name a few. Robbie Bosco, but you did play at the same high school as John Tate, legendary offensive. At one time, the highest paid offensive lineman in the National Football League, and a big time player with the Bears and with the Chiefs. Few years apart, you and John were a few years apart. Played in very different bodies.
Yep, very different.
So, are you? I look at a guy like John Tate, and he's as big as they are now. Like he could play with that same body now. Are you amazed at how much bigger and faster they've gotten in today's game?
It is amazing when you think about that and how big can you become and your joints still not give out when you have that much force in collisions. But I think for BYU, John was a good example of that growth in 2 or 3 decades of how you went from guys like me, who were kind of lucky to be on the team, to studs like John, who came in pushing 300 pounds and being mobile and no body fat and stuff like that. The academic level, too, was, I tell my kids that I got a 21 on the ACT because that was a perfect score back then.
Really?
Oh. And then, is 36 the perfect score now? I think it's 36.
I think 36 was back then, too.
But 21 was perfect enough.
As far as your students know, 21 was a perfect score.
Yes.
But I think physically, academically, in almost every single way, these kids in the last decade and a half have just been off the charts. Like this McKay Madsen kid.
Yeah.
I can't believe he could be a decathlete. I think he can throw like he can and run.
4.0 student.
Yeah.
He's crazy fast, and the combination of speed and strength and explosiveness. Think about that. He could go compete with the sprinters, and he's winning the state championship in the disc and the shot in California.
Yeah. And he's got the guts to stand up and sing a solo at church.
Right.
I
think McKay's a Renaissance man. He really is.
We're going to see him in a couple years. Your experience, the game day experience as a player back in the 70s compared to the game day experience today, what's the difference?
Well, the whole experience, I mean, I was hungry all the time. There's never enough food for us. In my freshman year in the Cannon Center, we got a serving and a half. That was all we could have. The extra half was because we were on the team. So we would beg for extra stuff, and they just couldn't give it to us. And we were hungry all the time. Coach Edwards started a kind of a Friday night burger thing at the hotel that got us together. And he actually got us starting in the hotel at night before games just to get away from things and to focus. And the game day stuff, I think in the morning you'd get up, and depending on what time the game started, you go to the stadium, warmed up, get dressed, warmed up. I don't know if it's changed that much. There's a lot more stuff to see now, the technical ability to record stuff and break down film. We had 16 millimeter black and white film.
Right.
It wasn't even video. So we didn't have the opportunity to really look at the fine-tuned.
There wasn't an iPad where you could just look at the play that just happened.
When a coach used to say, I got to go look at the tape, he was actually going to go look at a tape.
Yeah,
right?
Literally, yeah.
It wasn't digital video that he was running back and forth to see.
Is the pressure the same? Is the pressure to win the same for the guys in the helmets, do you think, today as it was then?
I would think, given what they've invested personally in that to be the athlete they are and the student they are, it's a lot higher stakes. I mean, there were some guys, probably there are still on every team, some guys who maybe they're lucky to be there. I mean, every week I felt I was lucky to be there, but I think some guys academically maybe just squeaked by, or physically they weren't quite there. But I think BYU, by and large, these guys they have are they're all in. They've been all in for 5 or 6 years. It's not just the last couple of years.
Yeah. Former BYU offensive lineman and current English professor Chris Crowe is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus. Supplies plus support by Eddie, HR and payroll software built for small businesses, and by Mountain America Credit Union, helping people achieve their dreams for over 80 years. We're grateful to our sponsors. And Wise Guys is distributed by the Deseret News. Considering where we are today with the Big 12, the big stadium, BYU TV, mass media access, what pride do you feel for being one of the pioneers that kind of put this thing together and started it all with LaVell, who built this thing from the ground up at that time? That's
where I feel lucky, right? Being able to be here. I only had 2 offers, University of Arizona and BYU, and I wasn't a member of the church when I was being recruited, and I chose BYU because they're so horrible. I thought at least I have a chance to play when I get up there. And then the recruiting trip was great too, because we were from the desert and you come up here and see these mountains. How could you not want to be here? And LaVell was, just getting started. I mean, and so he was an easygoing, good salesman. But I think when I look back at the 74 team, especially, we just had our 50th anniversary last season.
Yeah.
I think we had like 21 guys go get drafted in the NFL off that squad. Mm-hmm. And the passing game launched, all those kinds of things. It really came together in 74. 75 was my senior was kind of a bumpy season. Gifford didn't start the season as a starter, but then he picked up after the ASU game, I think. And ASU was 12-0 that season. They were 2 in the country by the time the season ended.
Yeah.
But I think that we, the team, not me, but the team, the coaches, we kind of figured out some stuff that made it work. And I know that LaVell listened to our group leaders. He wanted to hear what the players were thinking, what we were saying. And so we'd have these group meetings, and they'd go meet with him, and he'd listen. And the other thing I remember that I was telling Dave this earlier, I grew up in Tempe. Frank Cush is the coach at ASU, where he was just brutal. I mean, he was just a really tough coach. Yeah. Lombardi times 2. And when those guys lost, because my friends played at ASU, they'd get beat up. They'd just get punished. The next practice was just punishment, just running and beating and running and beating. And so that 74 season, we start with lose, and then a tie. Nothing changed in practice except we need to focus on this. We didn't run extra sprints. We didn't get chewed out. We didn't have to run. We didn't have to do anything extra except focus on what we need to do better than we did last week. And that was a revelation to me. I thought coaches can be like that. They can be humane. They don't have to this pound you in the face to get your attention. So I think that was something maybe I think LaVell figured out too on his own, that what kind of coach he wanted to be. And I think he wanted to be himself, and he wasn't afraid to do that. He had great staff around him too, so he could be.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because Kalani has this philosophy. He calls it love and learn, and we've talked a lot about it on our shows, because it's not, hey, love and learn. Hey, these are a bunch of lovers. They're weak. Who was it that came? Was it Chase Roberts that came on and told us about you can be a tough guy? But Kalani takes a lot of his stuff from LaVell, and I'm wondering if that's something he picked up, that love and learn, because it sounds like LaVell his whole philosophy was, listen, I'm not going to yell and scream. I'm going to still love you guys up, but here's what we're going to learn from what we did and get better. Is that something that you think permeated the program throughout?
I can see Bronco being that way too, right? Like, he loved his players, and they knew it. I think that Coach Edwards found that he could be that kind of guy. That's not soft-hearted is not the right term, but a guy who loved his players obviously and openly, because he had staff who could hammer him. So Whittingham was tough. When he showed up, I think it was my sophomore year, we started running 200s after practice. 200-yard sprints.
Yard sprints?
Yeah. And I thought, who is this guy? And he'd been for the Rams, and he was just tough and hard. And he wasn't afraid to grab you by the face mask and yell and stuff like that. And so I think Coach Edwards knew he had guys who could be the hammer. He didn't have to do that. He could be the face of the program, the guy who makes the big decisions, the guy who decides on personnel and coaches, that kind of stuff.
So you played a lot on special teams.
Yeah.
And you had a magical moment. And we want to talk about that late in the third quarter against Utah State in 1975. DJ is going to show us. And on the podcast, I just want you to envision the mountain of a man jumping up and blocking a punt against the Aggies. Here on the live stream, you can see it for yourself. All right. Before I ask you a question about it, you're staring at that picture of yourself. You're about 2 feet off the ground. You're smashing that punt. Do you sometimes look at that picture and go, was that me?
Yeah, I don't remember jumping that high. Maybe there was a hole in the ground or something that I was jumping over, but it was a weird moment. Nobody blocked me, and you see Steve Dewey and Chuck Carlson, they're getting blocked, and it just opened up for me, and I just ran forward, didn't know if I was going to get the ball or not. But back in those days, you couldn't advance a kick, you couldn't advance a fumble or block, or you couldn't advance a fumble, you could advance a block kick. And so Craig Thorpe had us run drills all the time in the offensive line. Don't be the idiot who tries to scoop and score and loses the ball, right?
Yeah.
When there's a ball on the ground, you cover it. And so we'd practice. He'd throw the ball, and we'd have to cover it. And so when I blocked that kick, it's floating on the 2-yard line. Everybody's going downfield because momentum is that way, right?
Yeah. Right.
The ball's run towards the goal line, and I see that ball, and my stupid training kicks in. Like this cover, I'm laying on the ball on the 2-yard line. Nobody's around me, and I'm just there.
Could you have just leisurely picked
I
it up and walked in?
Easily.
Oh, my
easily.
goodness.
And I still have nightmares about pick up the ball, and so I've showed that picture to my students and talked to them about the regret that comes with being stupid, making a mistake, not doing my best, or not being well prepared.
Hey, you blocked a kick, and they scored it 2 plays later.
And against the Aggies, who were pretty good back in those days.
They were decent.
So let's give yourself some credit there. That was a great athletic maneuver.
I could have had a touchdown.
Did the team score on the next play?
No, Todd Christian scored on 4th down.
Oh, wow.
We lost yards, so I had it on the 2. I think we were back on the 6 or 8 when Todd scored.
Todd scored.
On the 4th shot.
So Todd was
nice
playing
job.
fullback back in those days.
And that's a picture that will live forever in the family lore.
That's very cool.
And that jump looks higher and higher every year.
That's right.
That's
the story
awesome.
gets better and better. Right?
Oh, that's fun stuff. We're visiting with BYU English professor and former offensive lineman Chris Crowe on the Wise Guys, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. You got a great recruiting trip story that Dave was sharing with me. So on your recruiting trip, head coach is Tommy Hudspeth, but he resigns the following morning. He resigns, and on the following morning, you meet with LaVell Edwards for the first time. What were your first impressions? Like, you met LaVell the very first day he was the head coach.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
I think one of the first things I heard, and I was a non-member when I came for my recruiting visit, was he'd been a bishop, and I was like, what is that? So what? What's that? But in that first meeting, he wasn't, I guess he was anti-Cush. He wasn't anything like I thought of a head football coach is. He was open, welcoming, friendly. He didn't seem nervous at all, and I'm thinking, I guess he thought he was going to get fired. And, he was always thinking he was going to get fired next year. But he made it easy to like not just BYU, but him. and think it's a guy I'd like to play for.
Did that close the deal? Because when you went on the trip, there was going to be a different head coach. And did that surprise you to find out the night before that there was a change?
I never even got to meet Hudspeth, so I think stuff must have been in motion, obviously, before we came. And we did see Kreshmer Chosic play a game that night.
Oh, wow. So you got to go out. Yeah, that probably was something, right?
But I think talking to the guys, so they pair you with a team member and stuff, and those guys were elated at the change.
Were they?
And I thought, okay, well then, that's a good sign. If the players love this new guy, and are glad to see a change coming, then I'm maybe stepping into a good situation, then better than I thought it could have been.
Now, you met your wife, Elizabeth, in high school, and she's here with us tonight. It's good to see you there. She's a member of the church and very influential in your life. And you become a member of the church, which makes you a wise guy. One that gives you
and not only for coming on the show, you're honorary, but you are a wise guy. W-I-S-E, not just Y-S, guys.
So you mentioned you get baptized just before the start of fall camp, and there's some culture shock when you get here. Yeah. And so how was this new coach, LaVell, the bishop, and all that stuff? What impact did that have on you in this brand new environment where you're going, I don't even know if I fit here?
Well, he was glad, obviously, when guys joined the church. He was always glad about that. And Floyd Johnson was always encouraging, although I joined before I ever met Floyd. One of the things I remember, though, is that they were really pushing to get my membership records fast because tuition was cheaper if you're a non-member.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a kind of a big deal. I didn't even know. I didn't know anything about that. I'm like, I don't even know whether I don't know if I have a record. I don't know where you find that kind of stuff. So we finally got that worked out, and later I realized that's because it's saving the program 50%.
Yeah, because the football program is paying the cost of tuition, and so that's less that they had to pay because a member had a reduced tuition. Yeah. That is interesting. As you watch LaVell, because he recruits you on the first day as the head coach, and now you watch him and you're with him. Were you 4 years or 5 years with him?
4. I just played 4. Yeah.
4 years. So you're 4 years here with him. What did you notice about him during those 4 years that maybe would have tipped you off that, hey, this guy could be a Hall of Fame coach, or this guy might have the stadium name? Did you ever think that? But as you look back now to those 4 years, is there some characteristics about him that when you look back you go, oh, you know what? I noticed this and I noticed that, and that's why.
I don't know if we ever would have had the aspiration to think the stadium might be named after him or Hall of Fame, that kind of stuff, because BYU wasn't a football program at all, and so. Right. But I think for me, seeing him, the kind of man he was, that he could only be successful depending on the kind of kids he gets, right, that follow after that. But after I graduated, I went back down to Arizona to high school, and so when they would come down and play SU, I'd show up, and I'm thinking, he's not going to remember me, He'd see me, hey Chris, hey Elizabeth. He'd ask me about my parents because they never joined the church, and all of my life he remembers stuff. And so my first year in the faculty, I get a little card from him in my campus mailbox saying, hey, welcome to BYU. And the English department was getting kind of under fire in those days, and so he's made some kind of crack about the English department. And if I ever needed to escape, come down to his office. But he didn't need to remember me, and he had no reason to remember me. But I think that's one of the things that made him special. Is he was good to everybody.
That's awesome. No reason to remember me, but that's what he does. Yeah. That's just what he does. Our pleasure to have former BYU offensive lineman, special teams guru, and expert with the block punt against the Aggies, current English professor Chris Crowe on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus Eddie and Mountain America Credit Union. So looking back, and hindsight gives us a great view of things, how did those years of playing football and coaching football prepare you for a career in education?
Yeah. I think one of the things it taught me was to work hard, and hard work usually pays off at some point. Sorry.
There's some water right there.
There's water right
okay. And so I wasn't afraid to work hard. And then, I teach high school. So I was teaching high school English, so 5 classes a day, and then 3:30 had to change clothes. Right now I'm Coach Crowe, out there with the JV team and the freshman team, coaching track in the spring. And it was hard. It was busy. My wife can tell you. So after my first year, I started going to graduate school part-time at ASU. And so I'd get to school at 5 o'clock in the morning because with some of the coaches, we worked out for a couple hours in the morning. And then I'd get home about 10 because I'd have classes at ASU from 7 to 10 after practice, 1 or 2 nights a week. And then after I got my master's, I started teaching at Mesa Community College part-time at night because we needed the money. So I would leave home about 4:45. I'd get home at 10. And my wife said I used to just fall into bed, just and didn't even speak to her. And but that kind of work ethic that I learned, I think from being a football player, having good coaches in high school too, and in college, really helped me as a university professor because I knew what work really was like. I thought, I'm teaching 2 classes a semester instead of 5 a day.
Yeah.
It's a different world here, and that gives me time to write and do research and those kinds of things. And so I just kind of kept the pedal to the metal, although I had a lot more time at home. But I think it helped, that early training of just getting down and doing the job has helped me through my whole career.
You and I both played, and there's a part of sports that there's some real highs, like some thrills that you get from playing sports, and a block punt in a big game against a rivalry is a thrill that you always remember, right? And then you move on to real life, and David and I sort of moved on to real life. We didn't really move on to real life. Is this real life? So, but you move on to real life, and now you're teaching. Have you been able to find something in teaching and being a professor that provides you with a thrill that keeps you going, it kept you going this long at a high level?
Yeah. I've been, the last couple of days, I've been cleaning out the office. I don't have to do it all at once in December. And I have a drawer full of stuff from students over there, even high school students. And I think that making a connection with kids, and not every student, some students would profane my name, right? I'm the last guy they would give credit to for anything. But I still was in touch with a kid that I taught in high school named Mark Becker, we had a state championship basketball team, and he went to Arizona State. He later got a PhD in math, and he's taught all over the world, to play European basketball. He reached out to me, 30 years later and said, "Hey, man, you were the best teacher I ever had, not just to be high school, but all through graduate school." And I think that not that I looked for that from my students, but when that came, it still means a lot. I mean, it means an awful lot to see kids get it. The other high for me with teaching is the kid who doesn't want to be there, who hates everything about literature, writing, whatever it is I'm teaching, and somehow there's a breakthrough where I get to them, I find some way to get to them to say, this matters, it can matter to you if you just give it a shot.
Listen, if you're cleaning out your desk on June 2nd for a December 31st retirement, that tells me, Blaine, has he not mailed it in? Have you not mailed it in for the whole fall semester? That's what I heard. This guy's cashed in his chips.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, those lights will never come on in the office.
Yeah.
When you left BYU Hawaii for the job here in Provo, Elizabeth made you promise that you would take her to a beach every year. So that was 33 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you taken her to 33 beaches?
Have I? Not 33 beach.
Maybe the same beach more than once.
The beach every year. Have you done it?
Which beach does she like to have you take her to in Hawaii?
I think our favorite is Temple Beach in Laie, and then walking down to Kahuku along the beach. That's maybe our favorite walk of all time.
Right there. Yeah.
And when we lived there, that would be the morning. I'd go run with a buddy, and we'd come back and we'd kind of jog and walk and watch the sunrise every morning come out of the Pacific. It was a great way to live.
It's hard to leave that, isn't it?
Boy.
Are you a beach couple, even though you've been here in the Rocky Mountains for over 3 decades?
We are.
Yeah.
I mean, we came to, when I left BYU, I thought, I'll never come back to Utah. I don't want to come back to Utah. Not that I didn't like it, but I was ready to go back home into Arizona. And so coming here was an answer to prayer more than we didn't want to come. When they offered me the job, we were ready to say no. And we couldn't get the Lord to confirm that. So we came here kind of begrudgingly. Our kids were getting nosebleeds because it's so dry. You had to put lotion on your skin all the time. I didn't have a snow shovel, so I had a square nose.
Come on.
I mean, it was...
Toughen up.
I know.
That's the Arizona guy. Hey, don't let him flee. He grew up here, but lived in Las Vegas. How many years did you live in Vegas?
20.
You know,
And when he moved back up here, all I heard about was how freezing it was. And we're doing a game at 75 out. He's got a coat on. I'm like, dude, you're killing me with this. So he can't.
It's a different game down there, but I get the Arizona. There's sand, but not water
right.
there, right?
But we've come to love it. We've come to love Utah and the people and the place, the whole bit.
That's awesome.
Did you teach when Ann Cannon was in the English department at the time? So Ann Cannon is I loved her as an English teacher when I was coming through, and this is LaVell and Patty Edwards' daughter, Ann.
They were good friends.
She helped me fall in love with English and with literature. Yeah.
Her son, Jeff, we did a study abroad in London for 6 months back in 2011. Jeff was one of our students. And we connected with him right away because obviously I knew his mom, but he's just a likable kid too. Not a kid anymore, he's a lawyer, but that just kind of renewed this association now with Ann and Patty and of course, with Jeff.
Awesome.
Yeah, an amazing family. Anne wrote an article. She came and visited with us for several nights and wrote an article in the New Era about me, and it was called "How to Be Number Two."
Oh, what a great story!
So yeah, and she just did such a great job with that. So we love Anne. We love the whole Edwards family.
She's a great writer.
Yeah.
She's a great writer.
Yeah.
The grand finale now with Chris Crowe. 5 questions presented by Strategy Square. Enhance your company's social media footprint with Chantal at strategysquare.co. These are 5 questions with a couple of bonus questions, rapid fire. So, our show could go on all night, but our wives don't like it when we're here all night.
Yeah.
So let's keep it reasonable.
Okay.
Blaine's going to hit you with 5.
Here we go. First thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Your favorite sports movie.
Chariots of Fire.
I knew you were going to say Chariots of Fire because there's literature that is it's sports and literature, right?
It's got a great theme.
So Chariots of Fire. I picked that one for you, so I'm glad you confirmed that for me. Your favorite singer or band?
Oh, Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Yeah.
Oh, and Young. Throw him in there too.
Yeah.
Whether he's there or not, I like that.
Yeah, that's a great combo.
Nash and Young. That's awesome.
Your favorite breakfast cereal?
Man, my wife's granola.
So do you homemade stuff?
Yeah.
Are you saying your wife makes you eat her granola, or that's the favorite cereal?
It's the favorite cereal.
Because you guys are leaving together. You arrived here together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And no, that's okay. Granola's
there's
good.
nothing
I
wrong with
usually have
that.
to put it in some yogurt for me to love it. But okay, your favorite BYU moment, and it doesn't have to be on the football field. It could be any favorite BYU moment.
I think we didn't get a championship ring in '74 because BYU said, well, we've never gone to a bowl game before, and we were telling the coaches, but it's time to start, right?
You get rings. Let's
so
go.
we at the Christmas party for the game, before the week of the game, the offensive line composed a song called the 7 days of the Fiesta Sports, whatever many days we were down there, and the refrain was "No conference rings."
Oh yeah.
And so about 15 years later, we had a reunion, and after the stuff, Coach Edwards says, "Okay, guys, now go back and get measured for rings. The Cougar Club's going to buy rings for all you guys."
Is that right?
And that was a great moment.
Yeah.
And not because of the thing, but because of the thought. That I'm sure LaVell lobbied for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that far past, people don't care about the past, and so he made him care. And I thought, wow, he's still Coach Edwards.
That's awesome. That's
That
a
is
good
great.
one. Okay, the last one is your favorite thing about teaching. I have a couple follow-ups to this one too. So your favorite thing about teaching?
I think, especially these last few years, giving my students more freedom to figure out how they want to approach a task or show they've learned something. When they really take hold and take ownership, I'm literally irrelevant. I sit in class and just marvel at what's happening in front of me, thinking I could just walk out right now and it wouldn't matter. They would just keep going.
Yeah.
And when that happens, that's the high. That's it.
That's when you found it, the magic. So, what are you going to miss the most?
Man, I have great colleagues. I love the English department. It's a big one. We have 60-some faculty. I'll miss the students probably most of all. I won't miss grading papers, but I'll miss the interaction with students and faculty. Yeah.
Very good. We were going to ask you about your favorite beach, but you already told us it was Temple Beach. But is there another one anywhere in the world you'd rather go than Temple Beach? Like, not someplace in Bali or Fiji or someplace like that?
We went to Tonga on a research project I was working on, and these middle islands, Hapai Island group, there's an island called Lifuka that we stayed right on the northern end, and it was maybe 100 yards from beach to beach. And crystal clear water, and the coral there was no dead coral. It was all living and vibrant, and all kinds of fish and all kinds of stuff, and no people. We had it to ourselves, and that was maybe one of the best. Yeah,
that's pretty magical.
Best, yeah.
Listen, now that you're retiring, you can go to the beach whenever you want.
Well, and you were supposed to take her to one a year, right?
What's this year's beach?
Yeah. Have you been this year yet?
Yeah, we have. Where'd we go? I forgot.
You can just shout.
I guess we didn't go back.
But I feel like when you're retired, you should at least you should double that effort and go to at least two.
I'm for it.
Maybe 2 beaches.
I know in December,
for like months at a time.
Yeah, we did a cruise in December after classes were over, and we probably saw 10 beaches down the Caribbean. So
yes.
Nice.
Awesome. Hey, it's a pleasure to have the Crows here with us. We commend you on your career. Thanks. Congratulations on your retirement.
That's awesome.
Remember, we've got a full season to go before you're officially done.
Better be good. I want to go on high.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
And all you do.
We appreciate it. And thanks for all of the years that you taught and helped kids there at the university.
My pleasure.
So,
Chris Crowe, former Cougar offensive lineman, special teams, and a longtime English professor. And you can Google him, and then you can spend like 5 weeks reading all the things
stuff.
he's written.
That's right, that he's published.
Read it on a beach; it'll be better. But we appreciate having them with us tonight. Just before we bring in Scott Kavanaugh, let's do our Cougar Board question of the week.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans with thousands of posts every day. The question comes from Preppy, one of their insider subscribers. By the way, R.J. Johnson says, first time live on the show from San Clemente, California. There's some great beaches down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of beaches, nice job. All right, here's Preppy's question. Are you aware of any future projects for athletic facility upgrades? We might be able to carry that over to our next guest.
Yeah, and by the way, they just did a huge overhaul of the weight facility. So like they just completed one. The football team was out of that facility for about a month while they completely tore it apart and reconfigured and brought all the new equipment in. And I was just talking to a couple of the players the other day, and they said, what we've got is much better equipment and much more functional flow to what they've gotten there. So they were right in the middle of one that just was completed, literally just completed last week. So that was the only major one I was aware of right now.
Yeah, and there's always some nuances there at the football stadium.
Scott might be able to tell us if they've got some things that they're doing to upgrade locker rooms at the stadium or anything like that, because he's always on top of that.
I know he wants his own personal office upgraded.
Yes.
Our next guest is a longtime friend who earned his master's degree at BYU in recreation management. He's the venue manager, been one all over the country, including the Thomas and Mack Center and Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas. And next week he'll celebrate his 10th year at the Marriott Center and LaVell Edwards Stadium. Our pleasure to welcome Scott Kavanaugh to the Wise Guys. Good to have you here.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
We've been talking about having you on here for some time, and tonight is that time.
Yeah, okay. I hope I don't blow it.
Your golf tan is awesome.
My golf tan, yeah, exactly.
It looks good. It looks good. So look, what does a venue manager do?
You know, it's really interesting because in our industry, it can mean a lot of different things. It sounds a lot more important than it really is. I'm just a grunt, dude. I just unlock the doors and make sure the events are planned and organized, and kind of walk around and act like I know what I'm doing. So
we know that that's not true. That he just because
he does boss us around a lot.
No,
he
tells us what to do, but he also sticks up for us. So when we do Countdown to Kickoff, our game day show, we're outside for about 3/4 of that show, out on a big stage out there with fans all over the place. Then we rush into the stadium. We go up to our platform in the corner of the end zone, and you know, we've already been on the air for over an hour, and some of us need to stop and go to the bathroom quick. And so sometimes we're going to dip into the Cougar room real quick and then go up.
So one guy every time.
Dave Nixon goes with me. So we go to walk in, and they say, sorry, you can't come in here. And we say, Scott Kavanaugh told us that we could
That's a get out of jail free card.
Stop here on the way to the next set. And they immediately just back up and go just like this.
No one messes with us.
Just walk right in.
That's what happens all the time. Just use my name, and then I get a call the next day from people saying, "Why are you letting people do all this?" So that's my
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
But look, let's go to Vegas for a minute, the entertainment capital of the world. Okay. What was the biggest event that you were ever in charge of? And we're going to adjust your mic so it's not so messy there. Yeah, there you go.
I need a mic.
There you go.
Yeah. Here, let's right at you.
All right, there we go. So the biggest event in Vegas.
Hang on, I don't hear you yet. DJ is going to fix that. Okay.
You know, I don't get that much.
There we go.
I can't hear you. That doesn't happen to me very often at all. Yeah.
All right. Of all these giant places, and you were there a long time because that's where we first got to know each other, biggest event you ever worked?
It has to be the National Finals Rodeo.
Really?
I mean, you got 10 straight days. It's you're bringing in dirt. you're kicking out the basketball team, which really made them real happy. They can't be in there the whole month of December. I'm not going to Kevin Young and saying you can't be in the Marriott Center the month of December.
Nor should you.
No, nor should I, correct. But I think that was the biggest one because of the magnitude. And you have to store the animals outside the facility. And how do we get them to this side of the arena and that side of the arena? And I got to wear boots and a hat and jeans. That was kind of fun. But the people were just... It was like a high school reunion because it was the same people sitting in the same sections that would come back every year, and the vendors were all the same. It was a cool event. So.
It's one of the biggest events in Las Vegas on an annual basis. When I've had meetings or something down there, and they go, "Oh no, you can't have it that week." That's National Finals Rodeo, and it's a big deal. It brings hundreds of thousands of people to Vegas. Right?
We would turn away. You could order. There were 10 days. You could order 4 tickets, so that's 40 tickets. We would send out, or we would decline, there's like over 40,000 orders that we couldn't fill every year. And then they would go down to one of the casinos and they had a ticket exchange. So it was kind of like ticket brokering going on in a casino. Well, I don't want to get into that.
I had to learn as a sportscaster with a non-rodeo background, even though I grew up here in Utah, was that this was the equivalent of the Super Bowl to a football fan.
Oh, absolutely. These people were psycho. And what's really cool for me, being I'm a diehard baseball fan, and I could see all the baseball players, the pro major league players, and they got their hats and their jeans, and I'd stand off to the side, and the guys I'm working with, I go, "Okay, that's Steve Buechele, that's Nolan Ryan, that's Mike Maddox, that's Greg's brother right there." And they're going, "How do you know all this?" And I go, "I know my guys." But it was kind of fun seeing them outside of that baseball element in jeans and boots and a cowboy hat and saying, "Here we go."
Now you two played a show at Sam Boyd Stadium. I was telling Dave, I go back far enough, I call it the Silver Bowl. Remember?
Absolutely.
So Sam Boyd Stadium. What was that like? When somebody like that comes, do you get to interact with the band at all?
No, my job is to keep people away from the band. The biggest portion of that is the week or the 2 weeks before setting up and getting ready and make sure people have access to what they need to have access to. And our electricians are going, "Do you know what they want us to do?" And we're going, "Yeah, just figure it out."
You got to bring an alternate power source, right?
Absolutely. They bring in trucks and, absolutely, shore power and everything else. And you got to make sure it's all set up. And it's fascinating. I wasn't on the production team that was involved specifically with that, but where are the people going to park? How are we getting them in? How do we get them? What's the flow of the traffic going to be like? And the stage, it was Pop Mart. It was the Pop Mart tour. And so the stage was like this giant, long, out in the middle. And you're going, okay, now how are fans going to get here? And how do we keep the fans from up here from getting down here? And so there's a lot of work and planning and organizing. And then once the show starts, you're just kind of saying, how'd I do? How's it going? And you kind of make it work. So.
And then you listen to the music and go, okay, I have a cool job.
Absolutely.
So BYU and Wyoming fill up the stadium in 1996, the WAC championship game. This was really the night BYU showed Las Vegas of its drawing power, for better, for worse. And it really caused everybody to rethink parking.
It really did.
I
think the funniest thing when you bring that up, and I can't remember if it was that or the first Las Vegas Bowl. It was one of those, and they had a press conference, and it was down at one of the casinos, and they interviewed LaVell, say, "How does it feel? You're coming to Vegas." And LaVell famously said, "You guys are going to find out the same thing that people in San Diego found out. When BYU comes, we bring the 10 Commandments and a $20 bill, and we're not going to break either one of them."
That's where that comment came from.
That came from that one, yeah.
That's where it came from, was LaVell at a press conference. I don't know if it was a WAC championship or if it was the bowl game, the first bowl game BYU.
But you knew he was right.
Absolutely, we knew he was right. And it was really funny is being that LDS member of that staff, they're all planning. I go, "Guys, beer sales are going down."
Yeah, what about that?
Oh, absolutely. And so it was fascinating to see. We drank some soda. Parking was a mess. There was an accident on Boulder Highway, and so people started pulling off and just parking on the road. And BYU fans, back in the day when you'd come to LaVell Edwards Stadium, you saw cars parking alongside the road. You say, "Okay, parking's full. I need to park here and walk." Well, that's what the BYU fans thought, and they got up to the stadium. and there was tons of parking left, and they were just livid. So Pat Christensen, who was my boss, said, Scott, you're the Mormon, go talk to them all. so I got to be on damage control. I go, hey, you guys, hey, pay some more tithing. We'll send it down here or something. I don't know, we'll figure something out.
But when BYU's coming in for a big event, whether it's in the Thomas of Mack or it's out at Sam Boyd, do the beer vendors just go, oh no, not these guys again?
Yeah, they really don't, because they look at options. I mean, we're business people, so we're not going to sell beer. Guess what? Ice cream sales go up. Soda sales go up. Hot chocolate goes up if the game's cold, and so
they balance it out.
Absolutely, they look for ways to handle it. What they do, and they notoriously they'll come to me and say, Scott, what do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Hey, we're going to sell turkey legs, and I go, dude, I don't. Whatever, do it. We don't do turkey. Whatever
you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say on the BYU cruise, I was on the BYU cruise, and they warned it was the Royal Caribbean. If people aren't going to drink booze, but man, you better stock ice cream. So they brought in, I don't know how many times more ice cream.
Absolutely.
And by the last day, they ran out of cones. and they said, we can't believe we ran out of cones. Like, that's impossible with the number of cones we brought that we ran out of cones. So they had to do them in cups after that.
And on the reverse angle of that, you bring in Wisconsin to play BYU in Provo. Yeah. And they're looking for it, right?
Right.
And so that's the opposite. And so we dealt with that. And I remember, if I remember correctly, sometimes I don't remember the scores and all that because I'm running around crazy.
We got killed.
Yeah,
I
know at halftime we were getting pummeled.
Yeah.
And I remember walking down by the Wisconsin locker room, and there was a Wisconsin fan. Well, in the big write up in the paper and all everything, they were bragging they're going to drink Provo Dry. That was a big thing. They were trying to do that.
That's not hard to do.
No, it's not hard to do. That was a goal of theirs. And they came in, and some lady was down by the locker room, and she was on her cell phone, and I happened to walk by her, and she says, "Oh, this is the worst thing ever." And I kind of stopped. I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, she was talking to whoever it was back in Wisconsin. She goes, "It's halftime. We're way ahead, and there's not 1 ounce of alcohol in the stadium." So yeah. So you get the reverse angle of what happens for when BYU travels.
Yeah.
BYU venue manager Scott Kavanaugh is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, supplies plus support by Eddie, HR that actually understands owners, and by Mountain America Credit Union, helping folks achieve their financial dreams for over 80 years. Wise Guys distributed by the Deseret News. When it comes to boxing matches or concerts, there's always great stories about bands and people and what they were like to deal with. So we've got some hard-hitting questions for you.
All right, let's go.
And I know you're ready.
Go.
Yep, this is good stuff.
Let's start with the nicest entertainer you've ever had to deal with, and you've dealt with Paul McCartney, Ozzy, Oscar De La Hoya,
Garth Brooks.
Sorry.
The nicest.
Garth's the guy.
Oh, I thought
Garth's the man.
How come?
I got two Garth stories, and one was I was sitting in the crew feed area before one of his concerts in Las Vegas, and he was there with his family, his young girls at the time, and we were all having steak dinner, and we were getting ready for the show, and somebody comes up and whispers in Garth's ear, and he got up and he goes, you could see he was going, what? He couldn't understand what had happened, and he got up and left, and I never saw him again. So I go, I wonder what that was about. And I found out later from our kitchen staff that he had gone in the kitchen, and he had gone to the head chef, and he'd said, hey, there's been a mix-up. My crew doesn't have food. I need about 7 loaves of bread and all the peanut butter and jelly you got. And he went out on the stage, and he made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and he ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with his crew on the stage. But he made them, so that was pretty cool.
A PB&J made by Garth.
Absolutely.
All right, what's the other one?
The other one was I had an intern who worked for me. He's a pretty big dude in the church now, working with Salt Lake Temple renovations and stuff. And his wife came in to see him, and he was the intern, and she was pregnant, and Garth's wife was pregnant at the time, and Garth saw her in the back hall, ran over and says, hey, you're pregnant. And she goes, yeah, you're Garth Brooks. And he was totally committed to this conversation with this young nobody, really. It wasn't the day of a concert. It was the day before or something. Yeah. And he goes, is this your first one? He picked a name, and then he goes, can I touch it? And she goes, please, can you autograph it? But so he generally was engaging, and he cared about the people, and it didn't matter who you were, whether you were the intern's wife or who you were. So yeah, Garth was the guy.
That's great to know about Garth.
Absolutely.
So he's who he is.
Absolutely,
like, right?
He's real.
Okay, so now on the flip side of that, which band or performer was the most high maintenance you ever had to deal with?
That's kind of a loaded question, because we don't deal a lot with them. We deal a lot with their handlers or their managers. And the managers are the ones who want to choke. And I remember Neil Diamond's handler was hard to deal with.
Really?
Yeah. I was a big Neil Diamond fan. Still am. Love his voice. Great voice. But he made us call him Mr. Entertainer. He made the writer, and it was like, what? And I never saw Neil that night. He never asked for this. This was just.
But if you were to see him, you had to call him Mr. Entertainer.
Yeah, well, that's what they told us. I would not have done that, but that's not the way I roll.
No, that's not call him Mr. Entertainer.
Yeah, but the point is sometimes we judge the entertainer by what their staff and the others present, and some of the writers for some of these concerts, you want specific, you always hear about the M&Ms with no green M&Ms or green only, and the stuff they want in their dressing rooms. And these guys are hardcore about some of this stuff. And it's like, dude, calm down. It's Sprite instead of 7-Up. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, and so some of that stuff you have to deal with, but the entertainers themselves, very few problems.
Was there any, and maybe you just answered this, but was there any bands that made you nervous?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's hear that list.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest one was Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, that would make me nervous.
No, dude, that was horrible.
What were you afraid of?
Well, here's the story. Okay. So we were getting ready. I had just moved from Salt Lake, from Salt Lake from the Delta Center, and I helped open the Delta Center back when it first opened, and I'd gone to Vegas, and all my friends are going, oh, you're moving to Sin City. How are you going to raise your family in Sin City? This is going to be horrible.
Trust me, there's hundreds of thousands of people doing that.
Absolutely. So anyway, we go down, and we hear about Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails, and they were doing a concert, and what we do in our industry, if you have a band or something, or a show. We did some Louis Farrakhan stuff. There's some stuff out there that's controversial, and you really want to make sure you're covered and you're preparing yourself for safety and for what's expected of that show. So we would fly. So when Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails were coming, we would fly to Salt Lake the night before, watch the show, and then we'd come and do it here. And when we're doing it here, the people from Phoenix would fly to Vegas. And so we're working with the tour security. So when they get to the next stop, they know the guys, and they say, oh, you guys know what we're doing. You know what the show is going to be like. So it's kind of prepping, and they love that. They'll get us free backstage passes and the Metallicas and stuff. Thousands of, not thousands, but a whole lot of Metallica shows. Yeah. And because you're worried about that. Well, the 9 Inch Nails, the night before they came to Vegas, they were in Salt Lake, and they were a little worried because they had flown to Denver. I wasn't at the Delta Center then. Yeah. They had been at Denver the night before, and they saw what was the show, and they were worried about 2 blocks from the temple. Mm-hmm. This is what we're bringing in. So they did a buyout for the opening act, saying you're not opening up. And I think it was Marilyn Manson was open for 9 Inch Nails, or vice versa. I can't quite remember. Yeah. So they were mad, but they got their money. But they were mad that they didn't get to play. So just before the main act went on, they brought out the guy that got canceled.
Oh, really?
And they just went off. Oh. And they go blank Mayor Cordini, blank the Mormon Church. Oh. And then he took a Book of Mormon, he ripped pages out of the Book of Mormon and threw it in the crowd. And the crowd went, they were cheering. Wow. And so.
And you're watching this going, okay.
I'm watching this going, this is what
I'm getting tomorrow night.
Yeah, this is what I'm getting. And now it's a little bit different in Vegas, because Vegas is, they'll take all comers. Yeah, sure, bring it, But the thing that was interesting to me was they sold about 11,000 tickets for the Delta Center. We sold about 9,000 in Vegas. So I called my buddies and said, hey, where's Sin City at? Tell me about that again. Yeah. So anyway. That was probably the one that we were the most nervous about.
What was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was there a show that now the show's going and you're standing there, that the act was such that you just stood back and went, wow, I can't believe I'm actually here watching this?
Yeah, it's kind of, you kind of get that wow moment when you first start in the business, but after that, it's kind of, my head's on a swivel. People ask me, do you want to go to a concert? I said, no, I don't. Yeah. I'll go buy the CD, because I'm watching the security. I'm watching the stage. I'm programmed differently. It's kind of like asking a chef to go out to eat. He can't really enjoy the meal because he's critiquing everything. And I'm kind of that way too. And so someone says, hey, you want to go watch the Jazz? And I go, on my couch in my house. And so
we can't watch it on a couch because
Yeah,
we go, did you
yeah.
say that? That was a terrible cut. Why would that producer even take that angle, right?
You get it. You feel it. So I think that's the thing for me is it's hard to really to get wowed. I'm a big, like I say, Garth was the big one back in the day, and I love Garth. George Strait. We did a George Strait festival at Sam Boyd Stadium in Vegas, and it was an all-day thing, and that was a pretty cool story. I don't know if I can say this, but the stadium was under construction, and the boss said, "Hey, we got to do this event because they had just finished the Speedway, and if the event goes out to the Speedway, we might start losing events to the Speedway." So he says, "We got to do it." So Pat says, "We're going to do it at Sam Boyd Stadium." He goes, "Oh, by the way, we're under construction, so there'll be no bathrooms and there'll be no concession stands." It was a George Strait festival. It was going to start at 11 a.m. and go till about midnight.
No bathrooms.
No bathrooms.
And they're going to drink the whole time.
They're going to drink if we can find a concession stand.
And it's hot.
In Vegas? Nah. Yeah, and it was summer. Yeah. So we set up in the parking lots, George Strait Villages, and that's where we sold all the food and beverage. And so you had to come out of the stadium, go outside and buy what you're getting. And then around the parking lot, the paved parking area, we put porta-johns all the way around, about 8,000. And everybody else had to park outside in the dirt. And it was getting dark, and I had my hat on again and my boots, and I was cowboyed up, and I was ready to go. And that was a good show. I loved, Kenny Chesney, the Dixie Chicks. I mean, they had some stuff, man. It was when Kenny was just getting started, and so it was a great show. And I get this call. They go, "Scott, you got to come out here." I go, "Why? What's wrong?" They go, "You got a problem in the parking lot." And I go running out, and I go, the thing that's going through my mind as I'm running out there is these cowboys been out here drinking in this heat all day. Somebody said something about somebody's girlfriend, and
fight.
It's on, and I've jumped in the middle of some of those. I don't mind doing it, but I just don't look forward to it.
Fun.
It's not fun, but if you got it, you got it. And so I go running out there, and I look at the beer lines, and everybody's calm, everything's cool, and I go, "What gives? What's the deal?" And they go, "Scott, look at the stadium." I turn around, I look at the stadium, nothing, and they go, "Look up." And around the top of the stadium, all the way around, those cowboys were no longer going out to the porta potties. They were all going off the back.
Off the back of the stadium.
Yeah, so now I know where to get the ideas for the Bellagio fountains.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't see any anatomy, but you could sure see the streams glistening in the sunset. So yeah, it was kind of a.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
those cowboys are creative.
You know what? You're not. Yeah. They're not. Yeah. You can only do it so long. So
you have this job that often goes thankless because a lot of people don't even know what you do. They just see you around, and they don't know everything that it entails to put a football game or a basketball game or a show like that together. So where does your satisfaction come? Where has it come all these years to keep you doing it?
When I did my internship for my master's degree at the Oakland Coliseum, we did the A's, we had the Warriors. Thank goodness the Raiders were gone. I don't want to work any of that. And I remember before one of the A's games, it was an afternoon game, and I was pretty new in just figuring out my internship. And I remember walking around before we opened gates, and the chain link fence was shut, and there was a little boy there with his face pressed against the chain link with his autograph pad. And he was so excited to be there. And I go, "Dude, I want to do this. I want to help these kids and the people. It's unique to have a job where people want to be there." So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. Our pleasure to visit with longtime venue manager Scott Kavanaugh on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com all over the world. And it's another great Monday night, first Monday of June. So at BYU at the Marriott Center, it's a multi-use facility, especially on Tuesdays during the season. So how do you do a Tuesday night basketball game after a devotional that morning? I say morning, it's 11 o'clock when the devotionals start. How fast can the Marriott Center transition from one thing to the next?
I don't want to say, because if I say, then the basketball team's going, "Hey, can you go a half
then
hour
why
sooner?
can't we have shoot-around?
Can we have another half hour? Can we get a half hour sooner?" And I know Nate Austin's listening. And Nate, no, we can't.
Yeah, you can't
so
do it.
You can't do it.
Okay, so technically,
we try to have the court and everything ready for the shoot-arounds and everything by 2 o'clock. Now,
that's when the thing ends at noon.
It ends at noon, and we try to have everything by 2 hours. There's a caveat there that you say, there will be guys in there working. Sometimes teams come in, they don't want anybody in there, and they make you kick everybody out. But we can't kick out the TV guys that are setting up and the operations guys that are tying things together, electricians. The guys are going to be working. So that's kind of the caveat there. They do the shoot-arounds in the annex because there's just typically not enough time, and it's hard for BYU to get their shoot-around time in the Marriott Center and make the visiting team go into the annex. I think there's some Big 12 ramifications there I wouldn't want to mess with. But the visiting team always comes the night before, as you guys know, because you guys normally come in and talk with the coaches and stuff. They have their practice the night before. Yeah. So typically we can get that in. We try to keep things off Monday nights so they can get in and get familiar with the building before the visiting team, before the game the next day. But there was a couple of times when they put a women's game at 4 o'clock and a men's game at 7.
We've called a couple of those back to back.
Yeah. Well, we called them too, but we called them something else. So we hope we're trying to get off that. And what's really interesting now is being in the Big 12, that's a league game. Before it was just the coaches saying, "Oh, let's do it this night." And we're going, Wednesday night's open. And I'm sure, some of these smaller schools, if you tell them they can play Wednesday, you try to work with the teams. The teams are pretty good to work with, but now the conference is here and calling the shots, we kind of we cower down. So
it seems like the trend these days with new facilities is, hey, we got to have luxury boxes. In the football stadiums, luxury boxes. In the basketball arenas, you got that ring that's luxury boxes. Is it even possible to do that in the Marriott Center? Is that something that would ever be considered? Absolutely. Could you do it in the Marriott Center?
I think you could, but I don't know that you'd want. I mean, it's hard. It's the revenue guys versus the functional guys. And the one thing you have here is those other arenas, they're there to drive revenue.
Right.
And they got to drive revenue for the team, and they're trying to do that. The Marriott Center's not that way. If they wanted to drive revenue, I could make them some money. I could bring some events in.
You could bring 8 concerts in a year and make a bunch of money, right?
Concerts are a little hard because of the back tunnel, but there's other events you could do. You could drive revenue,
right?
But the church and the university, that's not a goal. That's not the objective. Now, the athletic department is doing what they can to enhance the seating. We've done some things in the past to help that, and I think the university and the athletic department are willing to do some of that within reason, but I don't know that's
luxury boxes not on the docket.
I haven't heard any of that. They may have some of that. I know at the Thomas and Mack Center they retroed in luxury suites after they had built that.
Yeah, and that was a pain in the rear.
Oh yeah, it was a kind
of. He says that, and then he sits in one for the AC/DC concert.
Yeah, he was in all. He was always in the suites, and so he had special security get him down to meet the talent.
Listen, I had the right friends.
Absolutely,
my friends were you and your friends.
Absolutely,
I'm not an idiot.
Absolutely,
I'm not the smartest guy, but I know who to call.
The thing that was interesting about that is they did the suites when they built the suites, retroed them at the Thomas and Mack Center. They said, well, what do we charge? I had no idea. So they said, we'll charge people $20,000 and we'll make them buy their tickets to all the UNLV games, and then they'll buy their tickets. We had the Las Vegas Thunder, if you remember about the Thunder.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. And so we'll have to buy those tickets. So they did that, and they found out that these suite owners during the National Finals Rodeo were subleasing their suite for $30,000 for the week.
I was going to say that's way too low.
Yeah. Well, so, and they had already signed the contracts for 5 years or 10 years, and so once they came up due again, the prices went way up. But you got to figure all that out.
Now it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid money now.
On the chat, somebody's asking about the locker rooms at LaVell Edwards Stadium. They're saying, hey, are we going to do anything to upgrade the team locker rooms at LaVell Edwards Stadium anytime soon?
It's interesting you said that we upgraded them a few years ago, and it's not a real big concern for the athletic department because the guys are in there 6 days a year.
Right.
They're only there 6 days a year. It's a little bit different over at the practice facility where they practice year round and they're over there.
And those are beautiful.
Those are nice. Yeah, that's nice. And that's kind of the thing because they don't bring – I coordinate with the equipment guys. Josh calls me and says, hey, we're coming in, a day before the game. They bring the equipment in. They set it up. The guys come in for an hour. You're there for an hour and you get dressed up and you go out in the field. You come back and half of them don't even shower. They just throw their stuff back in the locker room.
They go over and shower back at the other locker room,
or they go home.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not really a big deal. We just redid the visiting team locker room, and I'm so grateful for that because it was embarrassing.
It was
I didn't want to go in there. It was horrible, especially the table they would sit on to have their ankles taped and stuff. It was pretty bad, but we finally got that upgraded.
Yeah, that's good. That was good. So, are there any plans? I heard some rumors about hey, do they fill in the corners? Is there enough in the Big 12? Is there enough interest to complete the bowl and make this a stadium that seats 75,000 or 80,000? Or any conversation about that?
It's really interesting. I'm not typically involved in those conversations. I found out about the last time they built the corners to connect the upper concourse on Cougar board. So that's how I found out. So that's, we're really not in that loop. And,
Hey, Cougar board's a partner of ours.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I appreciate those guys. Appreciate those guys keeping me in the loop and let me know what's going on in my building. So
Stadium of Fire is one of our favorite events of the year.
Here we go. Here we go.
Do you ever get to enjoy that show, or are you
Absolutely.
too worried about what they're doing to the grass?
I'm not the grass guy.
Wait, our grass guy retired and we have a new grass guy.
The old grass guy didn't retire. John Quist went to work for the church, and he's in charge of all the grounds for all the churches from like Payson to Tucson or something.
By the way, I love John.
John's a great guy. Dustin does a great job as well. Dustin came to us from Rio Tinto Stadium, and so he's dialed in and he's on it. He's a little more. John was a little more. Sure, go do it. And Dustin's a little more. He puts his foot down with it, which I'm kind of that way too. But
except for letting us go to the bathroom when we need to. He doesn't put his foot down.
If you're not going on the grass, you're okay.
Or at the top of the stadium.
At the top of the stadium, exactly. So no, it's the Stadium of Fire is really it's that kind of. All the other events, it's devotional each week. It's basketball games. It's kind of routine. Yeah. This is kind of the real arena stadium event we get to do every year, and it's the Freedom Festival folks are awesome. Yeah. They're not professional event people. I mean, they are professional event people, but they're not professional concert promoters. So we get to help a lot, and they listen to us, and we get to listen to what they want to do, and they book the talent every year, and we get to work those. But yeah, when it's a country show like
Rascal Flatts
this
Tim
year,
McGraw, I really enjoyed Journey. I enjoy those shows, and once the show starts, I'll go down and listen, and I'll stand next to the stage and take some photos and show my wife afterwards. And so yeah, it's okay, but it's a stressful week because it's really a long week, and I did my internship for Alan Osmond for my undergrad.
Wow, yeah.
Really?
At the Stadium of Fire before it was the Freedom Festival.
Right.
Tell me you were working the night of the Million Firecrackers.
I was the student in charge of the Million Firecrackers.
Okay, all right.
Man.
Let's go back in time. Walk us through that.
So I'd come out here to Alan's house here on Osmond Lane.
Yeah, he's right down. Don't tell people where we're at.
This is a secret location.
Secret location. Yeah, I worked at a secret location. Well,
but I've been in the house. I know what you're talking about.
So I was working in the basement there, and the boys were in the other room practicing because the next generation was getting ready to go. And, and we worked that, and then out. It was an unpaid internship, and he goes, "The week of the show, we'll pay you." And I go, "Great." And he goes, "What we want you to do is we're going to set the Guinness Book of World Records."
I remember this.
No, dude, you can Google this, and it's on there. And if you watch it, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
So
I was 100 yards away and felt the whole thing.
Well, his eyebrows just barely grew back.
So
what happened was my job was to get students at BYU, because I was a student then, and we would take strips of firecrackers and tie them together and drape them over wiring that we'd put between scaffolding. And we would tie them together and drape them. And Alan's vision was we hit the plunger and pop, 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 and we're going to do it faster than anything's ever happened.
For $1 million. It's going to be great.
The talent that year was Willard Scott, Keisha Pulliam, Rudy from the Cosby Show when she's about this big, and the Jets. That was a music group. And we did a double dare show or take on a obstacle course, and we was through the slime and the cereal, and the three I may be wrong on these quarterbacks, but it was Ty and Scott Mitchell, and I think it was Jamie Martin.
Oh my goodness!
Really?
So we got. I think that's who they were. Okay. I think those were the three
NFL guys. All on the stage at the same time.
So they did this, and they're all covered in slime and cereal, and they come out, and I've got them in a golf cart, and I'm driving around. And I go, guys, can we stop here for just 1 second? We're getting ready to hit this. I want to see how this goes. So they all come into the portal with me. So I'm standing there with three future NFL Hall of Famers. They hit the plunger, and a mushroom cloud. It looked like an A-bomb went off. And the cloud is coming toward us. And I go, run, run. We get in the golf cart and drive away. I almost killed three future Hall of Famers or NFL quarterbacks.
College football,
who knew they were all going to go off at the same time?
They had no idea. But yeah, you pull that up on YouTube. And when I came back to BYU and interviewed for my job, I said, I didn't say anything about being involved in this. But the thing was funny is in the room where we kept it was right by the Cougar room where the trucks park in. That's where we stored everything. And we had like powder on the floor. And now I'm such a safety freak. And is this right? I just have nightmares about not the thing going off, but what could have happened. That could have blown the whole end of the stadium off. So anyway.
Crazy stuff.
That was crazy.
Hey, who knew that was your assignment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a factor fixing question I've been waiting to ask you. Because people say, when you paint the end zones in LaVell Edwards Stadium, it kills the grass. Fact or fiction?
Paint the end zone, the grass? No.
Paint the whole end zone blue or black.
It doesn't kill it, right?
No, it's.
I've had people say that to me.
What's really?
I don't think it does.
What's really interesting is when we dug up I don't know if you heard this, but when we put the new turf in.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago.
It was beautiful last year, by the way.
But when we pulled that up underneath, you could see where they'd painted like the whack logos and stuff where they pulled out in the dirt and stuff underneath it. So some of that stuff went through and it's pretty fascinating.
Really? There were whack logos still under the ground?
On the dirt down there.
But it doesn't destroy the grass. You could paint them
it's
every
not
week.
good for it, but it's a special paint. It's not like you're painting with. It's not painting with like oil-based paint you paint your house with or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's special turf paint. So yeah,
I love when they do everything when it's all in royal. I love it when it's all in royal.
Here's 5 questions for Scott Kavanaugh, presented by Strategy Square.
That's right.
.co. You ready?
Go.
Okay,
I
Scott.
know you kind of got a sneak preview.
Yeah, I can do this.
Exactly
I can't wait for the cereal one. I got that one nailed.
Favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? Man, that's a tough one.
See, I could predict his. I knew he was going to go Chariots of Fire, but I don't know yours.
It's got to be The Sandlot, dude, because that was me as a kid, man. That's what we did. That was me living in Bakersfield, California, me and my buddies. That was life.
Hurry up, Benny. My clothes are going out of style.
Absolutely.
That's
killing me, Smalls.
Great
There's
one.
so many lines from that one.
Absolutely.
So, your favorite singer or band? This is a big one because you've seen a bunch.
This is really hard because it kind of changes, because I mean, Garth was always the guy,
and because he's great, and because of who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd probably still stick with Garth, but now you give me some Tim McGraw, some Kenny Chesney. I mean, that stuff's good, man.
It's good. It's country.
He's a country guy.
Yeah, country guy.
Are you? Do you like Rascal Flatts?
I like Rascal Flatts. Again, they were really popular, and I really was all in that. I like their stuff, man.
I think people forget how many songs they have.
Oh, absolutely.
When they come this year, they're going to go, oh, wow, I forgot that, and I forgot this. And
I did that to my wife. And she says, well, Rascal Flatts, and I started playing some of the songs. She goes, oh.
They've had
Hopefully they still have it.
No, absolutely. Good guys. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yep. So, okay, your favorite breakfast cereal. This is what you've been waiting for all night.
Cocoa Pebbles, by far, dude. That's the best.
Pebbles?
You put the pebbles in, then you put the milk on it. You put the milk on it, then you go get ready, and you come back, and it's soggy. Oh, dude, that's the best.
And then in the end, you got chocolate milk.
Absolutely.
Just swigging
and
chocolate
milk. And then you just wash that down with your Cougar tail. And then you're
but what about Fruity Pebbles?
Go right to the hospital.
Fruity Pebbles are okay if you got no chocolate, but for the most part, I got Cocoa Pebbles.
Because I've never had, have you ever had the Rice Krispie treats made out of Fruity Pebbles?
No.
They're better than Rice Krispie treats.
Oh, really?
And now I'm thinking I should make a batch out of Cocoa Pebbles.
Can you call me when you do that?
I'm going to do this.
Yeah, let me know.
Swinging by the office.
I'm going to try the Rice Krispie treats. I don't know what you call them now because they're Cocoa Pebbles.
Cocoa treats.
But
because we make them I make them all the time out of Fruity Pebbles, and they're great. I think Cocoa Pebbles. I'm going to try it.
Yeah. I can't make those in our house. My wife's a health nut. So as you can tell.
Yeah.
You come over to our house.
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite event at either of your arenas?
That we do now?
Yeah.
Stadium of Fire's got to be the best because that's the biggest. That's the grand poobah of what we do. So that's probably my favorite.
Okay, football or basketball?
Oh man,
we're not going to tell Kevin or Kalani.
I think I like football because it's a bigger. I'm there over. I have an office over in the stadium. I'm over there for 3 or 4 days. It's kind of a thing, and you're kind of focused on one. Basketball, you can kind of get away with showing up, like noon because it's a little more routine, a little more. So I think,
and they can play 3 games a week. Football is an event.
Football seems like it's the event for the whole day.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Yeah. And I'm helping when the team does the Cougar walk, I can be over there and I can throw a football with you guys. And absolutely. Dave throws me. The pass is a pretty tight spiral. You must have been working with him, I think.
I got his fingers in the right place. He wasn't even throwing with the strings in his hand. I don't know what he was thinking.
Freelance. That's freelance.
We got him going now.
Right. Do you love those 8:45 p.m. starts as much as us?
I get home about 2-3 in the morning on those. Yeah. And when I was a bishop in a YSA ward, we'd have bishop meeting like at 7 the next morning.
You have to be there.
And then you'd sit in the stand and you'd have your first counselor, second counselor, and you start nodding off. And he'd elbow you, and then this one would elbow you. So it's like pinball. So I was just going back and forth.
We know your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
and
you do.
when we're leaving the state, like when we have an hour post game show after an 8:45 kick,
absolutely,
we're walking out of the stadium. And the only one there is like everybody's gone, you and a couple of people. and us.
Absolutely, absolutely right.
So, okay, your favorite BYU moment. It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be sports or event related.
Favorite BYU moment? Man, I thought about this when he said that. I had a good one, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, I think my favorite BYU moment was, man, they're all favorites. I mean, my job. Oh, I think my brother hired me. Well, I got to come back to BYU after all the other stuff. I got to come back home. That would probably be the best.
Who hired you?
Cool.
Who hired me? Justin Durfee, my boss. He's the man. He is the man.
Did.
Cool. Yes, he did. So
now this network of you and your buddies in this industry is pretty small.
Yeah, I could tell stories about those guys all day long. It's pretty big.
I know a core of them.
Absolutely.
But they're like NBA. They're like NFL quarterbacks. They don't retire. Or maybe it's they're like an NFL coach. It doesn't work here. They just go be great. They never go away.
Absolutely. It's a very tight-knit group. And once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And it's my buddies and I, we had a kid that was an intern for us, and he was looking for his job. And my buddy that he and I went to BYU together, and we worked together in a couple of venues, and he worked at the Delta Center with me, and I worked in Kansas with him. He says, hey, I'm looking for an event coordinator. So I said, this kid's a rock star. So he went into his human resource director in Overland Park, Kansas, and she was in there setting up interviews. He goes, stop. We already got the guy. We got a guy. And she goes, we got an interview. She goes, nope. We got a guy.
Nice.
Just stop. So yeah,
that's how it goes.
And so that's kind of the big push now is, up before you're working on your career and stuff. Now it's really kind of cool to help kids that want to get into business and do what you can to help them. So that's the best.
That's not how it went for Dave and I. When we wanted this job, we interviewed with Jack, and he interviewed a whole slew of people, and then eventually we had to earn the job.
That's what I'm saying. You did.
He said no one else would do it.
That's right. So
he's like, you know what? You're the only two idiots that'll do this.
See, and for me, it's like it's the opposite end. So they hired me, and that's like somebody says, well, you can't do that. They're going to fire you. And I go, they don't fire slaves. So I would say I feel pretty good about myself.
Listen, when we get over there to the stadium, I always look for you because, one, you're a joy to be around, and you're lots of fun, and you're in charge, and it's fun to hang around the people who are in charge. But you do a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's one of those jobs where I look back and I say I look back and when I went to start at BYU, I had a marketing class with Blaine way back in the old days.
In the old days,
that I thought I was going to be an accountant, and I look back and go, what was I thinking?
and he certainly didn't think I would ever be doing this.
Yeah. He was in charge in the class too, so don't let him fool you. He was in charge, but it really is one of those jobs where, when you wake up in the morning and you're working, the dance sport where you got to be there at 7 a.m. and it doesn't get out till midnight, or the football games, and you go back the next day. It doesn't feel like work. You still enjoy getting up and doing it. And the people that we work with, especially here at BYU, are just amazing. You call the electrician on a Sunday saying, hey, we got a problem. They're there, and it really is. It's a tight-knit group, and the people you work with. I got one last story.
Okay.
I was working a basketball game, and I was standing at the elevator in the ticket lobby getting ready to go down to the floor, and Elder Razband and his group came in, and they were standing there at the elevator, and in walks Blaine's folks, his parents.
Yeah, my mom and dad, yeah.
They walk in, and they obviously knew each other. They were shaking hands and hugging and all this, and I'm kind of standing back against the elevator door, and right after they got through hugging and everything, I leaned over to Elder Razband, and he goes, yeah, and I go, you might want to check your wallet. I think he just lifted your wallet. And the look on Blaine's dad's face was like, oh my gosh, what have you done? And so that's kind of what I enjoy. I don't care if you're in the Quorum of the 12, if you're Blaine's dad, if you're a janitor, you all get the same treatment from me. So
Scott was so good to my mom and dad work with Scott and his whole crew. They hosted at the football stadium where they were at the gate, where the visiting team and dignitaries came in and hosted them.
They did a great job.
Hosted at the Marriott Center for 20 years. Yeah. And that's what they got to know Elder Razband, like everybody there. And Scott was always so kind to them, so good to them.
Yeah, good people.
Yeah, it was fun. So
hey, it's going to feel like just a few weeks, but we'll see you soon at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
I can't wait. I hope you got your arm loose. Oh, excuse me, you got your arm loose so I can throw me some passes. I'm standing out in the street waiting for the team.
Are you going to catch him this year?
Come on, man.
I always feel like if I let this thing go, I'm going to have trouble.
My last time in
problem.
LES, I played.
Yeah.
Just that alumni game.
Oh.
What in the world was I thinking?
Dude.
Yeah, I know.
Impressive. It was impressive, though.
Next time in, you know what my next time in is? I don't know if we even tell you about this because, Blaine, that the police officer that is like kind of watching.
Yeah, Blaine. Uh-huh.
He always lets Gavin and I sneak in right before the first opener. This is a 8-year tradition since Gavin's been coaching. And Gavin makes me with him before the home opener, touch every step in the entire stadium. So we have to go up and down. Like we have to, like, and even, in some places where you go up and there's like a little 4 steps to go up. We have to run over there and touch those 4 steps. We have to touch every step in the stadium. And that's the tradition. And people say, how long are you going to do it? And I say, if Gavin wants me to do it, I'm going to do it as long as I can do it. So we're gonna try it again this August.
I got to play last year golf with Gavin in the.
Oh, that's right. He said that
in the Kalani in the football tournament.
That's right.
And so I get to play again in a couple of weeks. So hopefully I get to be. Gavin can play. So it's kind of fun.
Yep. Good stuff.
We'll be teeing off very soon.
Absolutely.
So.
I'm ready to go.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank
you, fellas, for having me. It's a pleasure to work with good guys, and when you see the fun and the enjoyment you guys have do what you do and kind of pumping up the teams and stuff, it's pretty impressive.
What do you think of our lair here?
I like this. It's funny because we have our custodians, or excuse me, our operations guys. They've got a golf cart that they drive, and they always go into the visiting team locker room to get a sticker from the helmets from the visiting team. Yeah. So they've got a lot of these are on. I got one golf cart over there that's got a lot of these on there, but that's nice.
Dude, when the Utes originally got in the conference, we had them in a place where they were on camera more often, and there was an outrage, and we had to move them to a different spot.
Yeah, that needs to happen. That was a good call. That was a really good call.
It's tough to see sometimes for folks, so we were like, let's put it over there.
When I went to high school, I was a Uinta Ute. Yeah. And our rivals were Roosevelt, the Union Cougars. So I had to convert, but that was on our.
And it was red and white, right?
Yeah, we were red and white, and we had to.
We went. I
got through that.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
so
it's cool.
In October, let's finish with this one.
Okay.
October, when the Utes come down, the place will be full and all of that stuff. Is there a bigger thing than that?
No, I think that's. But I think for us, it's always looking for potential problems.
Yeah.
Because I go immediately to the rivalry, and it was really interesting when we went down to Vegas to the bowl game when BYU played Utah.
Yeah.
And at halftime we were just getting totally pummeled.
Yeah.
And we came back. It was really interesting at halftime of that game. The fans were really civil. Everybody seemed. There was not. I remember
that's because Utah was ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like 35-7.
And at the end of the game, they were civil. But it was a weird feeling because it was like BYU won and Utah lost. So the BYU fans were happier than but it was a strange feeling, and we don't get that very often where it's kind of de-escalated.
They played so well in the second half, even though they lost, people felt like, wow, we were going to get killed, and they had a great effort. Now we have something to build on, kind of a feeling.
And everybody says, we want a good game, and we want to. I just don't want it to end on the Hail Mary in the end, and like last year.
You don't want Big Game Bill to kick a field goal at the end?
I like that. He will make it. I have seen him do that. But it's you're looking at kids storming the field and tearing down goalposts, and we do a pretty good job of preventing all that. So I'm not really worried about it.
So you want it to be over early?
Yeah, get it over early. People start leaving early.
You want BYU to be up like 3 touchdowns.
Absolutely, no, without a doubt. Okay. It happened one game when they came here last, and we were ahead at halftime.
Yeah.
And it was an 8:45 game, and Elder Rendlin started leaving. I was out in the street making sure the Cougar Canyon was cleared up, and a car pulled up, and Elder Rendlin comes out, and he gets in the car and left. It was about 11, and I go, and all the security undercover guys come together at the end to make sure he got out right, and I go to the guys, I go, hey, Rendlin's left. I go, if some reason Utah comes back and wins, it's his fault.
It's on him.
because the spirit left, and the one security guy looked at me and he goes, bro. I go, what? And he goes, he went to the U. He's leaving because they're losing.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Wow.
That's awesome. That's a great finishing story.
There you go.
Scott Kavanaugh, the venue manager, Marriott Center, LaVell Edwards Stadium, and I can promise you this: he's got so many more stories than we had time with tonight.
Yep.
But he's been in it with some of the most interesting people in the world, and love hearing his story. And he does such a good job for us. Literally, if we need anything, we get it done. And his folks are so good to us.
And it's not easy. Like, we have that big, huge stage out in Cougar Canyon and trying to keep people around and all of that kind of stuff. His crew, they take such good care of us, and they take care of getting us into the stadium and doing all that. When it's time to go into our inside, like, he treats us unbelievably well. So, and his crew.
We're golfing next Thursday if you want to go.
Oh, you guys are going next Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm in town. So 3 shots aside. So
all right, some campus notes. Track and field. The West preliminaries were last week. The Cougars qualified 18 student athletes for the outdoor championships. That's the most since 2004.
Right.
And up next is those championships, June 11th through the 14th in Eugene, Oregon. It is a unique time to be a runner. Just in the calendar year. Look at what we've seen. It started last summer with cross country.
Yeah, and you remember Ed Isom coming on the show and he said the thing about nationals is depth, like getting as many people in as you can get in. That gives you a chance to win a title in track. With 18 athletes, they can compete for this. And then it started in the fall. Women's cross country national champions, men's cross country national champions, and that hadn't been done for decades, right? And then men's indoor track at number 21. Women's indoor track finished number 4. These are final rankings. Women's outdoor track currently is ranked number 9, and men's outdoor track is currently ranked number 10 in the country. Yeah, if there's ever been a better time to be a runner of any type at BYU.
That's just
it's
amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Amazing. Men's golf finished tied for 13th at the NCAA championships. Their first top 20 finish in 15 years. You can watch our interview with incoming star Kihei Akina at wiseguys.com. Matt Baird, our friend who teaches golf over at Riverside Country Club, has been working with Kihei for years. And I asked him the other day, I said, hey, is Kihei the AJ DeBonsa type signing for the golf program? And without hesitation, he goes, yeah, he is.
And do you remember the other thing that Ed told us is, oh, by the way, it doesn't get as much pub, but we just signed the AJ DeBonsa of cross country and distance running on both the men's and women's sides.
Number one.
And now you just got the AJ DeBonsa of golf.
That's awesome.
That's a great time to be a Cougar, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, softball, lots of love for Ilova, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, it's Ilova, I think. I call her Ilova because I do love her. But Ilova Brittingham was named Freshman All-American by D1 Softball and Third Team All-American by the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association. So, she was already named Big 12 Freshman of the Year. Brittingham led the Big 12, 21 home runs and 135 total bases.
How about that?
Yeah.
It's going to be great next year. Men's volleyball, Trent Moser on the USA Under-23 national team, going to compete in the NORCECA Pan American Cup, July 27th through August 4th over in Guatemala.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And athletes all over the world.
Yeah, we talked a lot about basketball. I was just reminded, AJ was talking about playing on the U19, working with the U19 national team here this summer as well.
And Delaney's with the Canadians.
Delaney's could qualify to be on the Canadian Olympic team.
She's going to be on that.
She's going to be something. So, should we go to On This Day?
On this day, on June 2nd in the history of the world, let's go to 1835.
P.T. Barnum and his circus began the first tour of the United States. That was big.
Yeah. Imagine what they were thinking at the time and then what it became.
Then eventually they make a movie about P.T. Barnum.
Yeah, who knew he could sing?
Which is The Greatest Showman. Who knew he looked like Hugh Jackman and could sing.
Amazing. 1862 on this day, Robert E. Lee takes command of the Confederate armies of North Virginia during the Civil War.
Wow. In 1883, Chicago's elevated train system, the L, opens. I've ridden on a few L's, and so have you.
Take the L right to Wrigley Field.
Yep. Wrigleyville.
1928, Kraft rolls out Velveeta cheese. Where would we be without Velveeta cheese?
I think I'd be okay without it now, but when I was a kid, I couldn't have lived without it.
Yeah, isn't nacho cheese out of Velveeta cheese?
I don't know, but we used to make toasted cheese sandwiches out of Velveeta cheese.
Yeah.
Now I don't. Now I get real cheese. So
all right,
I don't know if Velveeta's not real, but Velveeta. It doesn't seem real to me.
It's got a different color to it.
Yeah. 1935, Babe Ruth announces he's retiring.
1942, Ted Williams enlists as a U.S. Navy aviator.
How about that? 1987, the Mariners draft Ken Griffey Jr. as the #1 pick in the Major League Baseball draft.
How about this one? 2004, BYU grad Ken Jennings begins his 74-game winning streak on Jeopardy!
Most famous Jeopardy guy. He hosts it now, right?
I think he does.
Yeah, I think he does. So, and rightly so. We're going to jump all the way to 2024. Simone Biles wins her record 9th U.S. Gymnastics Championship in Fort Worth, Texas.
Birthdays on June 2nd, 1941. Charlie Watts, the drummer of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, Craig Stadler, golfer, 1953, the Walrus.
What if your nickname was the Walrus?
Well,
would that be good?
People used to say, are golfers athletes? And I always go, they have really good hand-eye coordination, but I think that Craig Stadler's an example of they're not actually like jumping or running athletes, right?
Or John Daly.
Right.
1955, Dana Carvey. By the way, he does a fantastic Joe Biden.
Oh,
have you seen that?
Yeah,
he's got it.
And he used to do President Bush as good as anybody. So I have to slip one in here. Sherry Fowler Garner, 1956, my oldest sister.
How about that?
So good, happy birthday, sis.
56.
Yep. So on this day, June 2nd, happy birthday, Sister Sherry.
Okay.
So,
all right, and 1973, I think it's Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
But the president of Marvel Studios since 2007. Now think of how many movies they've cranked out since 2007.
The Avengers are all Marvel.
Nearly put DC Comics in the grave,
Yeah.
and Marvel just did the
What
whole
a great
industry.
job. Yeah.
So anyway, he was born on this day, June 2nd.
Yeah. So in we're going to talk about June 2nd deaths now. In 1941, Lou Gehrig, 6-time World Series champion with the Yankees, died of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease on this day in 41.
On this day in 2008, Bo Diddley. Now, Bo Diddley to BYU fans is what Bryant Gumbel talked about when they didn't play anybody. They played Bo Diddley Tech.
He was a great
But this
guitar
Bo
player,
Diddley was an entertainer. But when I think of Bo Diddley, I think of Bryant Gumbel.
When they used to do the Bo Nose ads with Bo Jackson,
Yeah.
then they did one with Bo Diddley too later on.
Yeah.
So they did Bo Nose.
Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from Lou Gehrig, who said,
This is important too. This is something that I'm not sure very many of us have ever had. But Lou Gehrig said, when you have a wonderful mother-in-law who takes sides with you and squabbles with her own daughter, that's something.
that is something. That is something. And that would be something.
That is something.
The great Lou Gehrig. You thought was going to be a baseball quote, didn't you? That's a real life quote there.
Well, Lou Gehrig was all about real life. So
thanks to our BYU professor, Chris Crowe, who will retire on December 31st after 33 years teaching in the English department at BYU and a member of LaVell Edwards'
very first teams yep.
Here in Provo, and BYU venue manager, the Marriott Center and LaVell Edwards Stadium, Scott Kavanaugh, who was awesome. We knew he'd be awesome, and he was.
And next week, I'm trying to think if this is going to be the biggest person that's ever sat in this studio.
It might be.
So we're going to have Andrew Gentry in with us, who transferred the Cougars from Michigan. So,
and he's a 6'8", 315.
Yeah, and I told you I stood between he and Jada. Those will be our 2 starting tackles this next year.
Yeah,
I felt like smaller than small. They're 2 giant human beings, so it'd be fun to have Andrew in.
I'm thinking Scott Mitchell at 6'7",
That's
6'7".
True,
he was here, and
Scott's not.
He's a big guy.
Built like the quarterback he used to be built like. I'm just going to say that, and I love Scott. I'm just going to say he's not built like a quarterback.
But he's so tall, and so he was here.
I think Andrew's going to be a little bit taller than Scott.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, it'll be fun to get the lowdown. He was at Michigan last year.
Yeah.
And I was at BYU this year.
And you know what? I had a chance to interview him at the Fan Fest in Idaho Falls. He's going to be fun. So make sure you tune in next week. He's got a great personality. He's a perfect fit for BYU. He's going to be great.
Where you can find us this week, I'll be in the Deseret News this week, and you'll be in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto, look for Blaine.
Yep, look for me
That's
there.
where you can find him.
That's exactly right. and remember, Wise Guys is presented by Brady Plus. Supplies plus support. Mountain America Credit Union, helping people achieve their financial dreams for over 80 years. And by Eddie Plus, made for small businesses that care about their people. Go to eddy.com. That's EDDY.com. Wise Guys is distributed by the Deseret News.
It's a historic show for us tonight as we announce 2 more partners and big things ahead. Thanks for watching the show. We encourage you to go to our YouTube page and subscribe for free. That'll get you our free email with highlights and stuff, and it'll help us to continue to grow up. But those names there, Brady Plus, Mountain America Credit Union, and Eddie, and the Deseret News are very meaningful to us.
Yeah, and as we get going, we're going to introduce you a little bit more to the people that are behind the scenes, that founded these companies and that run these companies, because behind all 3 of those, behind Mountain America and behind Brady Plus and behind Eddie Plus, are some amazing people that we're going to make sure you get to know.
And we enjoy our relationship with Cougar Board and all that they do for us too, and hopefully we do some things for them as well. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next week.